Google redesigns its mobile search experience. Facebook introduces a new login mode. YouTube clarifies how Shorts analytics work. All this and much more coming up in this 100th edition of the Connected Church News. Yes, it's been 100 weeks of bringing you the top 5 digital and social media news, and it has been an absolute privilege. Stay with me till the end as I give you a bonus tip and also a little bit of history on how we got to this 100th episode. And thank you for being here once again. I welcome you. I'm Natchi Lazarus, and this is the show that brings you the top 5 digital and social media news in 5 minutes. Let's get started. Our first big news of this week is from Facebook, and it's also about Apple. Facebook announced last week that they are introducing a new mode called limited login mode for app developers who use their SDK, software development kit. Now, this is a reaction by Facebook and also a step by Facebook to mitigate some of the effects of Apple's upcoming IDFA prompts. As you know, and we've been discussing about this in this news bulletin, Apple is coming up with series of prompts that will soon pop up on your iPhone. If you are an Apple user, it will pop up prompts saying, what kind of data do you want to share with the app developer? So this is to give users more control over what information is being tracked. And Facebook has been very vocal against this, and they've been taking steps to propagate that this is not a healthy thing for the advertising environment and so on. But now Facebook is also taking steps to help developers reduce the impact. Now, this particular login mode, limited login mode, will collect limited data from users. So that way, Facebook is hoping that some people will opt in to give a little bit of information instead of a lot of information. So it's yet to be seen how this is going to impact. But if you or your technical team are working with a Facebook SDK, then this is a news that you definitely want to pass on to your app developers. Hey, have you subscribed to our channel already? If you have not done so, please do it. Click the subscribe button and the notification bell, because weekly news is something that can help you keep moving forward. All right. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you in the next news item. Our next big news is from Google. Last week, Google announced that they are kicking off 2021 with a revamp or a redesign of the Google mobile search experience. They are visually bringing some changes, including font changes and design changes, and the way they use colors and the amount of space around each search results and so on, making it look a little bit cleaner, and the information is provided in a much more readable and easily consumable format on a mobile. The key thing here is you as a nonprofit ministry know that people use Google as the top source of any search. So they are going to search for your ministry, your nonprofit's information from Google. And if there is a design change, then you might want to quickly check whether your Google results are impacted by this change or not. So as they roll out, they are continuing to roll this out. So it's not fully rolled out yet. But as they roll out, I highly recommend that you Google your own ministry name and make sure that it appears properly on the search results. Our next news is about Twitter. Twitter has rolled out the new verification guidelines as of last week, and they also reminded users that this is a new set of guidelines, and even if somebody is already verified, even if you have a blue tick on your Twitter account already, you need to make sure that it is as per the guidelines. If not, you will lose it. So if you are a verified user, then I highly recommend that you check out the new guidelines and make sure that everything is fine. In fact, Twitter would have reached out to you. Make sure you check that notification and get back to them. If you are not yet verified and if you like to be verified, then you can check out the guidelines. I will link to the guidelines FAQs in the show notes for your reference. Our next news is from YouTube. If you are a non-profit or ministry that uses YouTube Shorts for online ministry, then this is a news you want to pay attention to, because YouTube has clarified how they use shorts as part of the analytics, how they measure the views and how that impacts the overall YouTube analytics, where you can go to check out some of the performance metrics, and also how YouTube Shorts performance impacts metrics like RPM, which is directly connected to the monetization of your YouTube channel. So these details are explained in that video that they have released. I will link to it in the show notes. Check it out. Our final news of this week is from LinkedIn. Last week, LinkedIn announced new features that gives more control to the user with relation to the post's visibility and replies. When you post, you can control who comments on those posts and who can actually see those posts. And it's not just that. The interesting thing is LinkedIn allows you to bring enhanced discussion options. For example, it says you might want to ask your connections who you know and trust for a particular piece of advice, and you can also post to a specific group and so on. So LinkedIn is going a little bit deeper with these options and allowing you to have meaningful discussions and bring people into the post discussions who can add extra value to that piece of content. That's all I have for you this week, but don't go away because we've got a bonus segment coming up. Starting this week, I'm going to add 1 more minute of a special tip, a bonus tip. Less than a minute probably. I'll talk about a tool or a strategy or a tactic or something that you can practically put to use in your digital and social media ministry. All right, that's a special section that we are starting to add from this 100th episode. And this being the 100th episode, I'm also going to add 1 more interesting additional history information where we talk about how we got to this 100th episode. So stay tuned for that. Let's now go to the bonus section. Welcome to the bonus tip of the week. The tip I have for you this week is make sure your visual elements, the way your videos, your images, and all that you design and you put out there on social media and the digital space, make sure they align with the current trends. All right, current trends. People have some specifications, and you can actually understand what they want to see and then present it to them in a way that they want to see, so that they like it when they look at it. Because social media is a crowded space. The way your social media posts look and the way people consume it is very important for you to pay attention to. Okay, so to help you with that, I'm also going to give you a resource. The link will be in the show notes or description of wherever you're watching this. You will have that link to a report by Shutterstock where the report talks about the current trends of 2021. The report talks about what people like and what kind of design does well, what kind of photos are doing well, and so on. So look at that and also compare that with your own ministry's design and visual strategy and see if they go hand in hand together. This is a very special segment that we are adding only to this news video in all of the last 100. As you know, we've done 100 episodes. This is the 100th episode, and all our 99 videos have been either 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 5 minutes of news. We've not exceeded 5 minutes of actual news. And then we have all this introduction and all that. So, but no video goes beyond 7 minutes. But this one is going beyond 7 minutes. It's going to be a little bit longer. And this one is the last segment where we are going to talk about the history. But come on, it's important because this is a very special moment. Having done 100 weeks of this episode, I thought it's important for our friends, people who have chosen to stay, towards the end of this video. It means that you love us, you follow us, you value what we do. So I think it's important, and you deserve to know how this whole thing started. So let's dive right in. Why did we start? Because we kept hearing from leaders, from our friends, our influencers in this Christian media space and among churches and ministries, we kept hearing that people don't have time, right? That is one thing that kept coming up, because I was a big fan of being on top of the news. As a consultant, as an author, I like to stay on top of the news, to write about it, to talk about it, and also to use it in my work. So whenever I had this meeting with the leaders, I was to sit and say, hey, this is what happened, this is what happened. And then they would say, you are in this field and you get to know it, but we as church leaders, we don't have the time or the resources to spend that kind of time. So it will be really great if someone collects all this news and presents to us in, a few minutes. I kept hearing that again and again. So when you hear something from your audience again and again, I'm actually getting into the giving you a tip mode. When you hear something from your audience, you have to act on it. And that's exactly what I did. So I heard this need, and I said, okay, got to do something about it. Let's try and do a news item. So it was a very experimental thing. I still remember pinging some of my friends, my dear friends on digital social media world, some experts who I met in events like Social Media Examiner. I even pinged the director, Phil Marchand, and a few of my other friends, and I told them, hey, I'm thinking of this idea, what do you think? And way back in 2019, early 2019, and I asked them for inputs, and they said yes, it's a great idea, and they even gave me inputs with the first video and so on. So based on that information, we said let's do this, and we actually rolled it out as an experiment in February 2019. Yeah, the visual journey has been very interesting, because how do you present something like this is a big question, and we didn't want to do something that somebody has done. I like to do something on my own. So what I did is I said, let's not replicate anything, let's try and do something original. So we came up with this whole frame system where my video will be in one corner, and then the news will be another corner, and it kind of now I look back, I'm like, ooh, the colors, because we use like green and yellow, orange and so on, but we've evolved over time. So initially we started out with that, and there was a good response. People kind of liked it, and we started sending it out to various through various channels. I'll talk about the channel in a minute, but we started sending this out to many leaders, and we got good response. Some of them said, gave me visual inputs also. They said this can be better, that can be better, and so we kept tweaking it. So if you see the next version, it was more of a greenish version, but we kind of retained some of the elements. And then towards July, we came to a point where we decided to go with brand colors. So if you've heard me before, I am a big proponent of having uniform look and feel in your brands and your videos. So we came to this yellow, which is our brand color, yellow, black and white. Mostly that's what we use. So we came to that, and we also came up with this old newspaper design, and we brainstormed it with my team. I have such a privilege of being, having access to a team like mine. I absolutely love the guys that work behind this. They are so passionate about it. They have a heart for the kingdom. They love helping the leaders. So such an amazing team. So we had this discussion, and we went back and forth. We did lots of samples, and we came up with this newspaper. So that's the design journey. We are continuing to improve. If you see, we're constantly adding new things. Even last week we added one more element. This week we are adding the bonus step going forward. So things like that, we constantly improving it, making it better and better and better, because it's a weekly thing. That's a good thing about a weekly news show, right? You can always make it better the next week. So that's what we're trying to do. That's a great question, because the way you decide which news is important is not easy. We actually collect a ton of news each week, and again, that brings me to a big point about the show. Running a news show is completely different than doing any other type of video, because batch processing. Many videos are done in batches. Many YouTube experts and video experts will tell you do videos in batches. Well, for a news, guess what? You can't do batches, right? You have to shoot them every week, because it's weekly news. It'll be old by the time you batch it. So it has to be current, to as much current as possible. So we just keep a few days of buffer for putting everything together, but mostly it's like it does not exceed 3 or 4 days. So it's like a very tight schedule. You have to do it every week, and no matter what happens, you're sick, you've had a haircut, you had a bad day, you had you have to travel, doesn't matter. I've recorded in all kinds of environments. This is actually my studio, so it's much better, but I've recorded in hotel rooms, I've recorded while I'm traveling, and all sorts of things. But you got to keep the show going, so you have to plan everything around that. So that's a little bit of side story. But coming to the news, we take a big chunk of news items, and then we pick and choose, and it goes through a selection process, and then we decide. The basis in which we decide which are those 5 news items is basically depending on what people will value, what is more important for our audience, which is a church, ministry, non-profit space. So that's the decision. That's how we make that decision. the next steps. So the future after this 100th episode, the next 100 episodes, because I don't think we'll do any specials in between. At least I don't want to, take your time for granted. So we'll try to keep it short. Probably I'll see you in the next 200th episode to talk about something like this. But for the next 100 episodes, we are planning to make a lot of improvements. One improvement is the bonus section that we've added from this video onwards. So I'm planning to add one more bonus section. So that it's not just the news, but it's also something a little bit more than the news. So we'll continue to do that. And and we'll also add other visual elements to make it more engaging. We also have, if you notice, we give more importance to the news and kind of the reader, which is me, our face kind of goes to the corner. We want to give more importance to the news and make sure you get most out of it. And also we try and give as much context to the news as possible. It's not just stating the news, but also saying what that means to you as a nonprofit ministry. So we'll continue to do that in the days to come. Thank you for listening to my part of the story, our side of the news story. Continue to be with us and support us. I really, really appreciate you. If you have any questions or comments related to our show, make sure you leave them and we will make sure we get back to you. We truly, truly appreciate you. We thank God for you and we pray that God will continue to use you mightily in the digital and social media space and you will be a blessing to many people through all that you do. This playlist contains answers to some of the questions that leaders like you from nonprofit churches and ministries have asked us. So maybe you will find them useful. Maybe these are questions that you already have in your mind. So do check out this playlist.